for a second. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started with the meeting, the Reimagining Public Safety Community Task Force meeting, Thursday, December 9th. And if we can go to the next slide, please, Lupe. I would like to do a brief roll call to see who's all here with us this evening so far. Eddie Chacon. I thought I saw Eddie get on. Luis Chacon.
Here.
Don Gosney.
Here.
DeWanda Joseph. Randy Joseph.
Here.
Kristen Killian Lobos.
Here.
James Lee. Armand Lee.
Here.
Shirley Leslie.
Here.
Laura Mangles.
Here.
Marcus Injisang. Tanya Polito.
That's it.
Joey Schlemmer. Where's Joey? Deborah Small.
Present.
Andres Soto.
Here.
Nakari Sion.
Yo. Here.
Thank you. Ben Thoreau. David Tucker.
Present.
Tamisha Walker.
Present.
Linda Whitmore. And BK Williams. Okay, so we can go ahead and go over the agenda. We have the approval of the October minutes, the November minutes, and then the presentation from the Cprc, and then the Office of Neighborhood Safety, and then where we will be discussing and creating the sub-working groups. And is there anything that anyone would like to change or has any question about? Okay, I'm not hearing. Oh, Andres, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I heard when you called Ben Terrio's name that he did not respond, but I see a Timothy Simmons. Is Mr. Simmons acting as a proxy or a substitute for Ben Terrio?
No, Tim Simmons, he is on he's a representative from the interdepartmental team, and he comes to all the meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Andreas, just a resource if you have any questions about the police department. I can help get information, data, answer questions, things of that nature.
All right, great to know. Thank you.
Yeah, we have representatives. Our interdepartmental team is comprised of various staff members from all over various departments in the city. Some of them are usually hop on as attendees, not panelists. Like they watch the meetings in case we need them for anything. So with that, I will talk about the meeting procedures. For public comment, I did not see any written public comment. And for those on their computer or tablet, and they're logging in through the Zoom link, then use the raise your hand function. Once we call for public comment, there will be a 2-minute time period for to allow people to raise their hand, and each speaker will have 1 minute at that time. And if you are logging in by telephone, then you can raise your hand by pressing *9. So with that, I would like to, I believe everyone has the minutes from the email that I sent last week, and I would like to get a motion to approve the October 28, 2020 minutes. Randy, you raised your hand.
Yeah, I motion to approve both the October 28th and November 12th minutes.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second those minutes.
Okay,
Second this motion.
thank you. And does everyone agree? Yeah, if you can use the raise your hand feature if you do agree that the minutes should be approved as written.
Sorry, if we want to speak, should we raise our hand? But if we raise our hand, you're saying that's an affirmative vote.
Oh, did you have a question?
Yes, my suggestion is you bifurcate the two sets of minutes because, for instance, I was not here at the first set of minutes, so I would be abstaining from that one while I might be approving the second. I need the opportunity to not either approve both of them at the same time or reject both of them or abstain from both of them.
I only asked about the October 28th.
But the motion was to approve both sets, and the second was to approve both sets.
Okay, maybe I didn't hear that properly, but the motion, if we need to, can we retake the motion and call out specifically October 28th minutes, please?
I move the motion to do October 28th minutes.
Thank you.
Second, David Tucker.
Okay, so can we vote on the October 28 minutes using the raise your hand feature if you agree? How many, I can't tell how many panelists do we have right now?
I think there are 15, Joanne. According to the roll call, anyway.
Okay, and we have
I admitted a few as well. And that should be 15.
5, 6, 7. Okay, well, we don't, okay, well, now we have enough votes to approve those minutes. Now, for the approval of the November 12th minutes, do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
Randy Joseph sets the motion to approve the November 12th minutes.
Is there a second?
Please check on second.
If you can raise your hand if you agree to approve the November 12th minutes. Okay, we have enough votes to approve the November 12th, 2020 minutes. So we will open the floor now for public comment. There will be a 2-minute time period for anyone who would like to speak in this time for public comments. And if, Stephanie, if you can start the time. Are there any speakers, Lupe?
Yes, we have 2 speakers.
Start once we start the time.
Do you want to wait?
No. I was saying they can start. I just thought we didn't have any. Okay, no, they can start. There's still 1 minute left to raise your hand if you want, but we're gonna go ahead and start with the speakers.
We have 2 speakers. Up first, we have Carol U. Johnson. Carol, you may go ahead and start. You have 1 minute. Carol?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I just had a question about the procedure for the public to comment. It's only during this time, but if there is a question or a comment I have later on, like during the presentation or something or after, there's no other way to comment because the chat is disabled. So how else would the public be able to comment if something comes up after the public comment?
We take space or take time after each item to allow for public comments at that time.
But not during the chat, because the chat is disabled, or do you enable that?
Not in the chat. No, it's verbal.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next speaker is Sarah Cantor. Sarah, you have 1 minute. You can go ahead and start.
Yeah. So I would, I just as a community member have noticed that there seems to be some significant derailing of the conversations into conversations about procedure and how things are happening. So I just wanted to make the recommendation that this task force agree on rules of order, potentially Robert's rules of order, and follow that so that there is less stalling about procedural questions. And really appreciate everyone on the task force. Thanks for all you're doing.
Oh, thank you. And that was the last speaker.
Okay, thank you. And as we move into the staff reports, I would first like to again request that the panelists, the task force members, refrain from typing in the chat box. And then also to answer questions about how we will be recording on the minutes around who makes motions and that sort of thing. We will be making sure that we have all of that documented in the minutes. So at this time, the only other staff report that I have is to mention that I am still following up on the rules of order. I hope that you will find that once we start getting into like working meetings, that this task force is really meant to be kind of conversational. And I just would hope that in the meantime, until there is something, or if there's anything gets established, that people just maintain brevity and are respectful of the space and of the time. And we just want to maintain some integrity around that. Other than that, I would like to note that as I was preparing for the meeting today, I recognized that I made an error on the calendar that I sent you all. I put the community roundtables in the wrong week, so I will be resending that document with the updated, with the corrections. And then I asked Captain Simmons if he would just brief you all the Rpd presentation that's happening in January. So Tim, can you?
Yeah. So good evening, everybody. Thank you for this time, and I'll be brief. So in speaking with Joanne and also from the several members of the task force, we're wanting a presentation that will occur both to this task force and also will occur at City Council, providing you all with sort of a status update as to what reforms has the Chief of Police been working on and the command staff been working on, and what has been implemented, so that you can have sort of an up-to-date understanding as to what changes have occurred and then what changes are on the horizon. So as you all deliberate and plan and get a better understanding of other services that are going on, you don't have to regurgitate or make recommendations for things that either have already been implemented, or maybe you can address things that have been implemented that you'd like to see changed or look a different way. So that presentation is set to come, I believe, Joanne, is it January, off the top of my head, I'm saying the 14th, but I might be wrong, but it's somewhere around that time frame.
Yeah, it's the second Wednesday, so yeah. Whatever day that is.
And then immediately following the presentation to you all, this task force, there will be an identical presentation made by the command staff to City Council. But we wanted you all to know that changes have been on the horizon for a little while now, and the chief has been working at policy changes, procedural changes, and things of that nature. And we want to make sure you guys are all up to speed on what those are.
And then also, I know that there were a few questions that had been sent to me when we sent out the questionnaire, as well as some questions that had been fielded through these meetings. And so if you can maybe, if you have any other specific questions that you want them to address, if you can possibly get those to me within the next week or two, and then that way we can make sure that we get them to Captain Simmons and the rest of his team.
Yeah, and we will include answers to those questions in that presentation as well.
Is that clear, or does anyone have any questions about that? If not, then we will move on to the presentations for this evening.
We would just like to have them in advance. I just want to reiterate that, so that we can adequately prepare, so that the day of the presentation, there aren't new questions that we maybe don't have answers to. We would like to be providing answers to questions you all have, so that you have the maximum amount of information possible.
Yes, thank you.
Joanne, I've had my hand up for about 4 minutes now. I don't want to go too much more into the meeting.
Thank you. Go ahead, Don.
Thank you. You mentioned a little bit ago that our meetings are supposed to be conversational. Well, it's been made crystal clear to us that these are Brown Act meetings, and the Brown Act has some very specific requirements that we have to follow. And that means not necessarily conversational, especially on the recording in the minutes, for instance, how people voted. It has to have the names of the yeas, the nays, the abstentions, and the absences on that. But so it isn't quite as informal as just being a conversational meeting. It is a Brown Act meeting.
I hear you. Thank you. Kristen?
I don't have a comment.
Oh, okay. Well, you have your hand raised if you want to. I just want to make sure that I'm getting to everyone's hand raises before I just wanted to ask any questions. Are there any questions about the RPD request? If not, then you have a question, Randy?
So do we email those questions out to them, to you,
You
Mr.
can just
Simmons?
send it to me and I'll field them over.
Okay, cool. That works. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have invited the CPRC, the Community Police Review Commission, to make a presentation this evening. So Randy, can you go ahead and will you be doing that, or?
No, I will not. Oscar Garcia, he is in the attendance. He will be doing the presentation.
Okay, so Lupe, can you please let in Oscar Garcia? And did I get the name right?
Yes, Oscar Garcia, and then he will need the screen share so he can share the presentation.
Okay.
We have the option to do that, so whenever you're ready.
Hey everyone, can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you for coming.
Good evening everyone. My name is Oscar Garcia, as my fellow Commissioner Randy Joseph just mentioned. Let me pull up here the slides. Just a second.
Is Eli also one of your commissioners?
No.
No.
Okay, I'm not sure who that is, but we're not doing public comment right now. We will have some time following the presentation for public comments.
All right. Can everyone see the presentation I'm sharing? All right, sounds good. So thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having the Police Commission. I wanted to go over some slides that we actually share often out in the community in various settings. Before jumping into that, I wanted to introduce myself a little bit better. My name is Oscar Garcia. I'm born and raised in the Iron Triangle. Grew up in the 80s and 90s when RPD had a lot more or a lot of challenges, and you know, grew up with the typical profiling, getting pulled over whenever I drove my brother's nicer cars, and just seeing a lot of friends and family being mistreated during that time period. So I come to the Police Commission with that experience. I've been on it since 2015, and I want to say I think only one commissioner has been on there longer. But I've since learned a ton about the police department, and I'll sprinkle in my experience throughout the presentation. And feel free to jump in at any point. This is meant to be sort of an interactive presentation, so feel free to jump in if you have any questions. And to not sort of bore you too much, I'm not planning to read off the slides per se. So if I do skim over something that you want more details, feel free to jump in. All right. So before actually I start, is there a amount of time I should be aware of? Or
like 15, 20 minutes.
Okay, so I'll shoot for 10, 15 minutes to allow time for questions. All right. So here, let me start here. So this is actually an old picture. I believe it's about 1.5 years. And we have several new commissioners, but we didn't have our in-person meeting this year, so we weren't able to update it. But most of the folks on here are still on the commission. And so just wanted to note that. So here's the list of the current police commissioners. And Randy's our newly elected chair, and our vice chair is Jenny Garcia. And we have folks from various parts of the city representing various neighborhoods and sort of bringing in various types of experience. So as part of this presentation, I'm going to provide you an overview of what we do, how folks are appointed to the commission, the history of why it was formed, and how we compare with what's called the Office of Professional Accountability, the complaint process, and then the importance of our outreach, which includes attending these types of meetings. So thanks for the invitation. So the Cprc, or the Community Police Review Commission, is an independent investigative body established to provide community oversight of RPD, promote positive relations, and then also to make recommendations directly to the higher ups within the city as it pertains to the police department. Most importantly, we're not part of the police department, which we emphasize a lot, and even in this presentation, because the community often thinks that we're somehow connected to the police department. So our scope is pretty well defined. Investigate allegations of excessive use of force or unnecessary force and any racially abusive mistreatment. And we're able to make recommendations based on those complaints directly to the police chief. We also can handle, but don't often do this, appeals from the Office of Professional Accountability. And then we also, very importantly, provide and review recommendations on policies, practices, and procedures that are presented to us in our meetings. We also try to bridge that gap between the community and the police department. We observe various aspects of RPD functions, such as hiring, and more recently, even looking at other aspects of practices that RPD does. And then, like I mentioned, we attend a lot of public functions so that folks are aware of what we do. And I also wanted to know that we also often monitor things like the police, blanking on the exact term, but where the police will have area where all cars have to stop. I'm forgetting the exact term. I'm a little tired right now, so my apologies.
DUI checkpoints.
So we participated in those because in the past there's been some regrettable things that occur at these stops. And so we try to make sure that they're more inclusive and not targeting certain parts of our community. So all commissioners are residents of Richmond and appointed by the mayor. Here's an overview of sort of the terms, or just an overview of how that works. We are volunteers and not in any way connected to the city or RPD. We meet every first Wednesday of the month, except in August when we have our meeting where we open it up more to the public. Our monthly meetings start at 7 p.m. and all meetings are open to the public, but we have a special meeting in August. We usually meet at City Hall, but because of COVID, we've only been doing Zoom, and we follow the Brown Act, so everything's posted online and in advance so that folks can participate as they would like. So as part of the meetings, here's a typical overview of what we do during each meeting. So we'll start off with open forum, sort of like you did today, and then we get a report from our city council liaison, which till very recently was J.O. Myrick, but he's leaving the city council, so we will soon find out who that will be. And then we get a report from the police chief, from the Police Officers Association, Benterio, and then we often discuss in closed session our complaints or anything that's sort of sensitive to ensure the integrity and safety of the sensitivity of whatever we're reviewing. So a little history, I want to spend a little bit of time on this. The Cprc was established in 1984 in response to many complaints about, at the time, what was called the cowboys. A group of police officers were well known to use excessive force in order to, as part of their day-to-day policing and in order to patrol and sort of control crime in the city. And as part of that, it's my understanding there was some sort of settlement that required the creation of the Cprc so that there is community oversight of the police department. We're the only city, is my understanding, in Contra Costa County that has a police oversight. And the next nearest cities that I'm aware of are Oakland and Berkeley. So we're pretty unique in having a police oversight here in the city. And here's the ordinance or the municipal code that outlines how we operate and why we were established, and et cetera. Very soon, there will be more updates to align with some recent state regulations that allow for more publishing of police complaints and police practices, and among other updates that fellow commissioners have been pushing for. It's my understanding those will go into effect within the next month or so, and more information to come on those. But because there's still a very slight possibility that they can change, I'm not going to dive too much into those unless someone has a question. Okay. So an important thing to note is the police department, and you may already know this, so my apologies if I'm repeating something you already know. The police department itself has the Office of Professional Accountability, which is their internal process of reviewing complaints. We are independent, not only from the OPA, but also from the Richmond Police Department. There's often confusion in the community that sometimes people feel if they file a complaint with one, they're thinking that maybe they're filing it with the other. So we always emphasize that we're separate and we're not the same thing. And one of the biggest differences is the OPA doesn't really have a scope. They can investigate anything. Whereas the Cprc, our scope is limited to, like I mentioned earlier, excessive or unnecessary force or racially abusive type complaints. And in most cases, the OPA will investigate themselves complaints that are submitted to the Cprc. So here's just a high-level overview of the differences between the OPA and the Cprc. I'm not going to spend much time on it, but just know that one is, the Cprc is city volunteers that are everyday residents, whereas the OPA is run by the police department itself. So just a high-level overview of that difference. So in terms of filing a complaint, anyone can file a complaint involving the Richmond Police Department. So it's not limited to Richmond residents. If you're driving by and you have a contact that you feel wasn't fair with the police department, we're able to investigate that. And you can submit your complaint in writing, in person, or email it via the information that's linked there. In order to preserve our ability to adequately respond, i.e. have consequences for an officer, we require that the complaint is filed within 120 days of the incident. But we have leeway to make exceptions. The reason being is we find that we have about a year in which we can recommend discipline to an officer, and then a lot of details related to an investigation, they get lost rather quickly, so that 120 days is to preserve the quality of the information and also to give us the ability to recommend discipline, okay? So it's not meant to just randomly eliminate possible complaints. And then, so once we receive those, we immediately review them, and most often the OPA will as well. And then it just goes through our review. Our investigator will then look into it. And only those that are within our scope sort of fall will go to that next step where our investigator will look into it. So too often we get complaints about traffic tickets and things like that, and unfortunately, those are not in our scope. The city council hires our investigator. I think it's one of the few employees that work directly for the city council. They often have a legal background, and they're meant to represent the best interests of the city. They're usually retired sort of law enforcement or lawyers. And so like I said, they interview, or the investigation begins pretty quickly. And just like a typical investigation, they will reach out to witnesses and collect any evidence that the Richmond Police Department may have, including their videos. And then we'll make a recommendation based on the investigator will then compile the report, make a recommendation. We would then vote on that recommendation and either sustain, not sustain, exonerate, or unfounded in terms of how we feel that the validity of that complaint. Sorry, I'm starting to go a little bit fast, just looking at the time. One of our biggest challenges is folks are just not aware of the city resource. So we have gotten a few late complaints filed, but just not enough folks are aware. So that's the main reason why we attend public events, so that more and more folks can learn about us. So we try to do as much outreach, but as you can imagine with COVID, that's been, I think, an even bigger challenge. So here's examples of our participation out in the public. Cinco de Mayo. And so just in summary, we're independent from the police department, so no connection to the police department. Very important for our community to know that, so that they feel hopefully more comfortable filing a complaint. And we have direct connections to the higher ups within the city to make changes within the police department. And so we're always trying to make sure folks are aware of us so that they can make full usage of this resource. And I think that's it. Any questions, comments?
Yes, my name is Dewanda, and my question was, I know within the last couple of years, maybe a little bit longer, that there wasn't a full commission. I wanted to know, when did the commission become a full board?
Yeah, so I want to say for a good chunk of 2020, we had 2 or 3 commissioners drop off for various reasons. But as of our very last meeting, this December meeting, we're now a full commission.
So are you saying that in the last few months the commission has been full, or how far back had it not been?
It was not full. So it's kind of complicated. One of our commissioners went on a personal leave. And so I'm going to say he or she participated, but remotely, so it's kind of hard to count her. And then 2 others dropped off for work reasons. So I would say at least half the year, maybe we had 1 or 2 vacancies.
In 2020, half a year in 2020?
Correct.
Okay, so I wanted to ask, in light of the timeline that you mentioned, that getting expediting the things and being able to look at them in those first, possibly, I think it said 120 days, what happens to the complaints that were filed prior to a full commission that may go back a couple of years? Are they being reviewed? Are they just sitting? Have they been bypassed?
No. We've had our investigator, and we've been investigating normally. We've been operating normally. We haven't had any. If someone filed a complaint, it would get filed or investigated immediately in 2020.
Let me clear up that question as well. So just because we don't have a full commission doesn't mean that things don't get investigated. So if there were 2 or 3 commissioners not being full, we still were meeting, and that those things still get investigated. The commission itself, as in the people, do not investigate. The investigator is the one that investigates. And so when he's investigating, whether or not we have a full 9 people, investigations still happen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions? Awesome, I think that's it. So
I had questions. I had my hand up.
Sure, go for it.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, Oscar. Yeah, a little bit of that history. It was the Roman Guillory case that resulted in the establishment of both the Cprc and the Richmond Police Activities League as part of the judgment against the city. And it was the largest judgment in the history of the United States at that time for police violence. And so I had a couple of questions, as well as pointing out a couple of things. currently, you got, as you said, you report directly to the police chief with recommendations, but there's another link in the chain. It's also then filtered through the city manager before it ever gets to the city council. Multiple layers there, and that has been a problem in the past, where the police chief or the city manager have overturned or negated the decision. One question I had, is it still true that if the OPA provides some discipline on a complaint prior to the commission making a decision, that would negate any decision of discipline that may be recommended from the police commission?
Yeah, so just to clarify your earlier comment, so we're actually able to keep elevating if we don't agree. For example, if we don't agree with what the police chief says, we're then able to elevate to the city manager.
I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. So just wanted to clarify that. And then your question. Sorry, do you mind repeating? I'm a little tired today.
Yeah, no, that if the OPA investigating the same complaint of an incident, there's parallel, investigations, you guys and the OPA. It used to be, and I'm asking, is it still the case that if the OPA makes some sort of recommendation of discipline, that would supersede any recommendations that may come out subsequently by the police commission?
No, I can think of 2-3 recent findings where we had something completely different and we recommended something completely different than what the OPA did. So I would say no. And in one case, we even elevated to the city manager because there was sort of a disconnect there with the former chief. So I would say that we almost don't even look at what the OPA came up with. We look at it with our own set of eyes and experience.
Okay. And then finally, this process, and given history, it seems like there should be a prohibition on the investigator being a retired law enforcement person, because that's part of the challenge of breaking that culture. And it also seems like there should be at least a year for the investigation to occur, as well as a year for filing the complaint. I know you guys, I believe you guys have to wrap your business up within 1 year of the initiation of the investigation. And one other important point you made was that Richmond is the only city in the county with any form of police oversight, civilian police oversight. And that's strictly because of the power of the police unions in the local politics and the pressure they put on politicians. And the same thing is with the county and the sheriffs. So yeah, that seems to me a couple of things. And then I was wondering, has the commission itself ever asked for expanding the scope of the issues that you can undertake, such as gender identity, those kind of questions, sexual harassment, and ask the city council for enhanced powers?
Yeah, so I'll let Randy answer that. I think he has a better answer.
Yeah. So when I got on the board, that was one of the first, when I got on the commission, that was one of the first things that I put in the process, and it has gone through the first and second readings. And I think in the next 30 days, there should be a city ordinance readjustment to put sexual harassment, discrimination based on orientation and stuff like that to be voted on, to be put into the ordinance. So that has gone through, and we're in the process of putting that through to be part of, to expand the scope of what the CPRC can investigate. So that is through the process as we speak.
That's great. And then do you guys give periodic presentations to the city council so that people can learn about your work?
Yeah, so these slides were actually put together for a city council presentation, I want to say like a year and a half ago, maybe 2 by now. So I think it probably is time for us to provide another update. And one of the things that I think would be good is I noticed that the city's free data or open data has a running list of the complaints that we've processed. So I think it'd be good for them to see those numbers over the years. And folks here are welcome to look at those too.
Yeah, and are there any public notices on KCRT about how to file a complaint about police, that sort of thing?
I'm not aware specifically of KCRT, but I think that's a really good suggestion. I'm more aware of flyers being at the police department headquarters, but because people aren't really allowed to go in there right now, it's not convenient, I think. But I will propose that. I think that's a good idea.
There should be also an identifying tab on the city website. Okay, I'm done. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for your patience, Deborah. I didn't realize that when I was calling on you earlier, my hand, I was on mute. But we have a couple more questions. First, Deborah, and then BK. But in the meantime, Oscar, could you do us a favor and stop sharing your screen? That way we can see everyone.
Yes.
And it'll be a little, thank you. So Deborah, you've had your hand raised for a while. Thank you for being patient.
No worries, Joanne. And I'll be very brief, just kind of following up with Andre's questions and suggestions. I actually wanted to follow up about outreach to the community around the existence. And I just wanted to make the point that the Richmond Police Department regularly posts to neighborhood councils and other social media about crimes. So it seems to me that it wouldn't be inappropriate for the CPRC to also post to some of those same groups about the procedures and the process for filing complaints.
Yeah, good suggestion. I can definitely work that with city staff. Because of the Brown Act, I think we're not ourselves able to do that, but I think through our city staffing, we are able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a process.
Yeah.
Okay, BK.
Yeah, quick question, Oscar. I thought I heard you say that you've been on the commission for 15 years. Is that?
No, since 2015.
2015. Okay, thank you. That was my question. What's your term limit? Most are 2 years and 2 and 2 years. So you're normal. Your commission is the same as other commissions.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions or comments? Captain Simmons, you have?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, thank you, Oscar, for that presentation. In regards to the change of the ordinance, I just want it to be known, and Randy and Oscar can both attest to this, that both the Richmond Police Management Association and the RPOA were very supportive of those changes. And when the meet and confer process happened, I just want the commission to know that there was no objection to the expansion of the CPRC's evolving of the ordinance. So I just think that's an important thing to note. And then also, Andreas, one of the things you mentioned, I don't know if you were trying to get to this question or not, or if I just inferred this and that, but one thing that would complicate the discipline is if OPA has an investigation, and the investigation is running side by side with the police commission. And if the police commission has not completed their investigation yet, but OPA has, and recommends discipline, and the police chief decides to implement that discipline, the moment that discipline has been served on that officer, regardless of what the recommendation is that comes out from the CPRC at that point, the discipline can't be changed once the officer has been served with that discipline. So there can't be like a double jeopardy, so to speak. You know, you serve a suspension of say 2 days, and the CPRC feels that it should have been a week, and then they can't go back and later and say, okay, well, yeah, we agree, we want it to be a week now. So once discipline is served, it's kind of stuck there at that point.
That was my understanding. So that has not changed.
That part has not changed. No, and that's all protected under POBAR. It's really like your hands are tied the moment discipline has been served. Can't be disciplined twice or greater for the same situation.
Yeah, so given what OPA is versus external civilian oversight, to be revisited, so internal discipline cannot be done prior to the completion of an external civilian investigation.
That would be something for them to discuss. Yeah.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure that I didn't miss that point there for you.
Yeah, because that was my question to Oscar, and he presented it differently. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Simmons, for that. At this time, I'm going to open it up for public comment. So if the public would like to have a chance to speak on this particular item, we will have 2 minutes for you to raise your hands. And it looks like we already have some people with their hands raised. So we can go ahead and get started with the comments, and we'll let you know when the 2-minute time period is up, and each speaker has 1 minute.
All right, we have 2 speakers signed up. First is Eli. Eli, you can start now. You have 1 minute.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, hi everybody. Eli Moore, Richmond resident. Really appreciate the work y'all are doing. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So my question was for Oscar about whether the CPRC gets a copy of all complaints filed with the OPA, or what that process is for the CPRC to keep track of any complaints filed with the OPA.
We only get the complaints that are filed with us. We are prompted by the OPA for complaints that have what I call automatic triggers. So if there is an officer involved shooting, they are required to bring those to our attention. But if there isn't anything that triggers an automatic investigation like that, we do not get it. And that's the current process.
All right, that time is up. Next up, we have Carol U. Johnson. Carol, you have 1 minute. You can go ahead and start. Carol,
my question is that when can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
Yes.
So my question is when the commission, the CPRC makes recommendations to the police chief, and then when there are cases where the recommendations may not be followed in a timely manner, or if they're ignored, what happens then?
So we have had an incident like that, and we have had to elevate to the city manager, and we were able to get what we felt was reasonable as it related to that complaint. So we are able to elevate whenever we feel, say, the chief doesn't respond like we would like, and keep elevating up to the city council if we feel we're not getting the response that the community deserves.
Right.
And I'll go further. So say if a case goes to discipline and it lands on the chief desk, and then the chief denies that, we have, like what Oscar says, we can go up to the city manager and then to the city council. But usually when cases go to the chief, she has 30 days to render a decision to whether she is going to accept or decline our recommendation.
And those were our only 2 public speakers.
Okay, thank you, Lupe. So with that, we will go on to the next presentation. Thank you so much, Oscar, for coming. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.
Everybody, and the whole CPRC.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Now we have Sam Vaughn representing the Office of Neighborhood Safety. And Lupe, can you share his presentation, please? You have the floor.
Well, thank you very much, Joanne. Thank you, Lupe. I also want to thank all the folks who are putting the work in to try to get this task force up and running and make some credible suggestions. You got to forgive me, I'm working off my phone because for some strange reason, my MacBook would not allow me to get my microphone working. So if you could just go to the next slide, please. I know there's been a lot of interest in our office and, you know, some good, some bad, but interest nonetheless. So I wanted to just give a little bit of a historical background on how our office was created, what the purpose was. And so we came into existence because of historical amounts of gun violence in the city of Richmond. Not unique to the city of Richmond, but nonetheless, the city of Richmond decided that they wanted to do something unique to try to solve that problem. And one of the ways that they decided to do that was to create our office. And when they created our office, the mission of our office is simply to reduce gun violence and hopefully one day eliminate gun violence in the city of Richmond. And we do this by creating and providing attention-intensive engagement and support structures that are designed to improve the social and emotional health and wellness of those we serve. Next slide, please. And so just to give a little bit of history on how gun violence is in the city of, or was, I should say, in the city of Richmond. The 20 years prior to the office's creation, we had 749 homicides in the city of Richmond by gun violence. And that's not even to include the possible 4,000 to 5,000 people that were injured by firearms and survived. And so that's approximately about 37 lives lost every year in the city of Richmond by gun violence. And so once we were created, our initial strategy was street outreach. We did that from April of 2008 and continue to do it. But in June of 2009, we came up with a different and more unique strategy, which we called the Operation Peacemaker Fellowship. Next slide, please. So for street outreach, and this is just for 2019, I have this data for 2008 until 2019. But in 2019, we had 6,140 outreach contacts facilitated by our NCAs, over 10,000 hours spent with those individuals during those contacts. 147 specific individuals were at high risk of being involved in gun violence we provided services to. Of those 147 folks, we provided 728 service referrals that was facilitated by outreach workers. We had 37 community conflicts that were mediated by that staff and 16 gun violence interventions. Next slide, please. So the fellowship. And we started this in 2010 because we were realizing that outreaching in the community was important. Letting folks know what we're doing is very important. But we need to, we followed data, and if we were going to accomplish the very hard task that was given to us, we needed to focus very clearly. And with the years of doing outreach, we realized that we were going to have to deal with specific individuals a lot more focused, a lot more intent with those engagements. And so we created this fellowship specifically for that. And so the fellowship is a non-mandated intensive mentoring intervention designed for youth identified as being at the center and most impacted by gun violence in the city of Richmond. Lasts a minimum of 18 months and consists of 7 key components designed to provide fellows with tools, skills, and resources to lead healthy and productive lives. The ONS we have very limited resources, and so we felt that if we were going to be able to accomplish the task that was given to us, we needed to focus those resources on the individuals that were creating the statistics that we were trying to drop. Next slide, please. So the fellowship is literally a multi-daily contacts with staff. We want to continue to engage them. We want to be in their face constantly. We want to build a relationship with them where they expect us, they want us, they anticipate us, they look forward to us. We help create a life map with them, allowing them to let us know what their goals are, what they're trying to accomplish, what's hindering them, what kind of behaviors are hindering them from accomplishing that, and trying to figure out a way that we can. Of course, we have case management and social services navigation support. And social services navigation support is literally we walk into organizations with them to get them the support they need, to get them the help they need. Because a lot of times we figured out real quickly, actually, that there's a lot of organizations that do a lot of great work, but they don't have the capacity to deal with the baggage that these individuals bring. And so we help guide them through that process, make sure they go, make sure they're consistent with whatever they're saying they're trying to do. And just, it's kind of like you wouldn't send your child to a after school program or a sports camp without seeing what they're doing, acknowledging their consistency with what they say they're doing. And so we give these individuals the same capacity. Transform the travel opportunities. We believe that no one can truly hope or believe in something that they have never seen. So we want them to get out of their comfort zone. We want them to get out of their communities. We want them to see what the world really has to offer, because you wouldn't believe how many individuals that live in this city who has never been anywhere, that they haven't even seen the other side of town because it's unsafe for them to be there. And so it's hard to get someone to believe in something that they don't even understand or know that exists. We give them internship opportunities, because one thing that we've learned from young people is everybody says they always want a job. All I need is a job. All I need is a job. It's not true. They need money, but they don't understand what a job consists of. They don't understand if this is something that I'm willing to invest 30 years of my life to get a retirement. So we want to just expose them to as much as possible so they have as much information as possible to create or decide what it is that they're willing or want to do. We create an elder circle around them. And literally what that is it's simply just a bunch of elder folks who look like them, men of color, who's had tremendous obstacles in their life. Most of them are very successful. Lawyers, doctors, public health directors, and everything in between. But to be able to see somebody with that much success, to be able to see somebody who is more than likely possibly a millionaire, but has had to struggle their whole life to get there, to show folks that it's a marathon and it's not a sprint, to give them hope to invest in themselves and not just, be this microwave, like, I just want it right now. I need it right now. If it's not giving it to me right now, I don't want to invest in it. Because that's one thing that's going on in this generation. They're just looking for opportunity, and they're not willing to work hard and invest in it. So we want them to see what hard work and investment in yourself could truly create. And then which is one of this is one of the things that really has created a lot of stir. Our life map milestone allowance. A lot of media has said that it's rewarding bad behavior, but all we're doing is what every healthy family has done. I do it for my children. Every healthy family has done it for their children. I give my kids money for their A's. I encourage them to do what's right. And all we're saying is we acknowledge the hard work that you've done. We acknowledge you investing in yourself, and we want to match that investment. Next slide, please. And so like I said before, spoke about what the fellowship is. The fellowship is not, and this has been a sticking point. This has been a sticking point for the work that we do. We're not encouraging bad behavior. We're not saying that the crime is okay. We're not promoting it. We're not saying if you have a relationship with us because we're a government agency that you can do whatever you want to do and get out of jail free. You get caught for what you're doing, and you have to deal with those consequences. We exist because the majority of folks who shoot and kill do not go to jail. They are not arrested. They have no consequences for the actions that they commit. And with that being said, there's a lot of people who have been victimized that feel justice is not served. Therefore, I'm willing to create this same kind of chaos for the other community to let them know that it's not okay. I have to feel justice. I have to make my community feel safe. And so this is how we even came up with the term retaliatory shooting. Someone gets shot, there's no consequences. So the other community shows what the consequences is and they retaliate. And it's back and forth and back and forth. And that's just the reality we live in. If someone committed a crime and they went to jail for it, most folks would say, okay, justice is served. But in America, and especially in urban America, I would say the majority of cities that's dealing with this issue, you have literally a 10 to 25% closure rate on homicides and shootings, which means that leaves 90 to 75% of folks who have been shot or killed with no consequences. And it's hard for certain folks who have felt that trauma, their loved ones, to think that that's okay. And so they perpetuate this problem. And we're not paying criminals to behave. We're not doing that. Like I said, the Life Map Milestone Allowance is simply, we want to acknowledge the hard work that you are putting in and committing for yourself and encourage you to continue to do so. And let you have the basic fundamental needs that you need to where you feel like you don't have to go out there and commit a crime to get your basic necessities. Next slide, please. So why did we create the fellowship? As I said earlier, we learned after about 2.5, 3 years of just outreach that it wasn't enough. And we took our task serious and we looked at all of the information that we had in front of us, and we created something that we felt that would benefit our community and accomplish our task the most. So we followed data, we followed science, data drove our decisions. And so we created an 18-month non-mandated intensive mentoring, and we've done that 6 different times since 2010. And during that, and so when I mentioned these 127 fellows that we had throughout those 6 cohorts, there have been a number of them, a large number, at least half, that have gone through twice because 18 months just wasn't enough for them. They needed more. It took them 10, 15 years to become the person that they were. And so it took 3 years to help them decide that ain't who they want to be anymore. Next slide, please. So the statistics of those 127 individuals that I just spoke of. And when I talk about these 127, and when we think about 10 years of doing this fellowship and 127 individuals that we've focused all of our energy and all of our resources on, that's rare as well, because most organizations who are working with anyone, whether it's substance abuse, mental health, job readiness, like they have a specific amount of people that they have to work with. They have to have a specific amount of folks who go through the program successful. We got a 6-month turnaround, maybe a year turnaround. We've invested a lot of energy and resources and time into these specific folks because we understood that if we did not succeed at what we were trying to accomplish, nothing else mattered. Like you could have great after school programs, great sports programs, you can do all those things, but if these individuals created all the statistics that was making everybody feel unsafe, nothing else would have been successful either, in our opinion. So we wanted to engage these folks and invest in them in a way that no one has ever invested in them. And so because of that, and these are folks that when we chose them, we sat around a table and asked ourselves, with the climate and the information that we have about gun violence in the city right now, who's going to be the list of people who dies in the next 6 months. And who will be the list of people who we feel would be responsible for killing them or attempting to kill them. And the list is the same, really. It just depends on who catches who first, or who would get lucky, forgive the term. But 97% of those people are alive. Out of 127, we've only lost 5 to gun violence. 83% have not been injured by a firearm since becoming a fellow. And 66% have not been suspected in a firearm-related crime since becoming a fellow. And we take that as a huge accomplishment, because if nothing was being done, we would argue that out of these 127, there might be a small percentage to get lucky, but a majority of them wouldn't be alive. Those who aren't alive definitely would have been injured by a firearm, and the other majority would have been arrested for shooting or killing in one of those other topics. Next slide, please. So just to try to create an understanding of where this city's come from and where it's been since our creation. In 2007, and the two numbers on the homicide/gun, the first number is how many homicides were in the city of Richmond, and how many were gun related. And so in 2007, out of 47 homicides, 43 were gun related. In 2008, 25. 2009, we had 40 gun homicides, 10, 18, 11, 21, 12, 16, 13, 13. In 2014, we had the lowest amount of homicides that we've had in this city, and I believe it was over 4 decades. In 2015, there was 18 homicides by gun, in 16, 22, in 17, 14, in 18, 14, and in 19, 15. Now, we like those numbers dropping, but the bigger importance for us is the next set of numbers, shooting with a victim. And so with the shootings with a victim, we had 242 shootings with a surviving victim in 2007. And all that means is that there was 242 times that somebody attempted to kill someone, but they survived. And so that could have easily been 285 homicides in 2007. And in 2008, there was 156 shootings that survived, victims that survived. 186 the next year, 118, 114, 82, 95, 75, 75, 60, 70, 58. In 2019, we had 37 victims that survived a shooting. And what I've done throughout the years is I've combined, once again, because if you're shot, somebody was attempting to kill you. So I've combined these numbers. And so in 2019, we had 52 shootings that led to injury or death. And that is the lowest amount that I'm aware of since the 70s. Next slide, please. So with that being said, in 2019, the city of Richmond experienced an 82% reduction in shootings resulting in injury or death compared to 2007. Before that was the last year before our outreach team hit the streets in 2008. And as of right now, we've had 14 months since we've had a juvenile homicide. And sadly, 14 months ago, a young man named Aiyana Sawyer lost his life, 17 years old. But prior to that, we had had over 3 years without a juvenile homicide. And we pride ourselves on that simply because every community that deals with gun violence, they have juvenile deaths. It's a natural part of this beast. And we are one of very few cities that can boast that we no longer have children being killed in our streets, because in 7 and 8 and 6 and 5 and 9, you could easily have 5, 10, 15 young people under the age of 18 that lost their life to gun violence. And so we're very grateful for that. Next slide, please. And so as I was creating this presentation, I wanted to make sure, because I've been on some of these calls and I've heard some of the conversations and some of the questions that have arose as our name comes up. And I am, excuse me, I am a city employee. And so I believe in the work that our government is doing. I appreciate the fact that we are one of very few governments that has tried to find a way to let the community know that the government does care about you. We do love you, and we are looking out for your best interest, and we will think outside of the box to make sure that you're cared for. There has been 13, 14 different offices of violence prevention that has arose because the city of Richmond was bold enough to create the first one in this nation. And we appreciate that. But one of the questions that has arisen since this conversation has taken place is the question of the value or savings to the city. And I'm not for sure. There's been a lot of media, there's been a lot of research, there's been a lot of data collection about our work and what we do. We were an anomaly, so to speak. And so we got a lot of attention. And any number that has been published about how much savings that Richmond has had since the creation of our office has been done by researchers, criminal justice reform organizations, universities. We haven't had, I mean, we've had input because they've asked us questions, but we did not come up with the algorithm. We don't know if it was quantitative or qualitative. That was designed by the researchers and what they were trying to accomplish, but that has been their findings. And there's been a number of different findings, and I don't mind sharing links. We've had research done by NICJR. We've had research done by the Center for American Progress, USC, Cal Berkeley, the Mother Jones magazine. And so there's a bunch of different numbers out there. We didn't create them. I believe there was a question specifically designed to a one-pager that we put out at the beginning of this year for last year. And those numbers were based on how many violence interventions that we did, which was 16. And they based that on, okay, if there were 16 homicides, what would that have cost the city? And they went from low range to high range, and then they minused our annual budget, and then that's the number that they came up with. And I don't mind sharing all of that research and data. I can send Joanne the links. A lot of them are long reads, but I don't mind sharing them. And another question is, why do we deal with the folks that we deal with? Why do we invest in them instead of investing in folks that haven't done anything wrong and deserve a bright future? There's a number of reasons for that. I'll keep my personal reasons out of this presentation, but I believe that everyone deserves, from an office standpoint, I believe that everyone deserves a chance to live a healthy, successful life. Everyone deserves the opportunities. Everyone deserves resources to be poured into them. And so our goal was to end gun violence. We decided we were going to attack it by engaging those who are most responsible for it, and then making sure that their needs were fulfilled, which means we're serving that community the way they need to be served. There was another question about, it was hard to find us. It was hard to look us up. A lot of folks don't see us out there. We're not at the fair. We don't have a table at Juneteenth. We're not passing out flyers about the work that we do and asking for referrals because we're specific, we're laser focused. We decide who we're going to engage based on what the community is saying about who's most responsible for destroying our mission. If our mission is to end gun violence, who's responsible for making our mission that much more difficult? And we want to engage them. We want to be laser focused on them. And we want to make sure that we're dealing with them specific. And now these folks are the individuals that live in the shadows in this community. They don't want to be seen. They don't want to be known. They want to lurk in the dark and continue on their path. And so we're in the dark with them. And one of my favorite sayings is when somebody says, "Man, I'll never see you out there," my response is because you ain't willing to go where I'm going. You ain't willing to go where I'm sitting. You're not willing to sit in the house and talk with somebody who's the whole house is just reeking of weed. They're selling dope out the backyard and they got an AK-47 by the window. But I'm not willing to engage them if I'm not willing to meet them where they are. I cannot engage them if I'm not willing to meet them where they are. And so I have to feel comfortable to go into the dark with them. And because I'm in the dark, we're not visible. And it can be frustrating at times when folks are questioning the work that you're doing. But I also understand that there's a lot of people who want to know what's going on. And so it's kind of a catch-22 because we kind of consider ourselves like the CIA of Richmond. Like no one knows what the CIA is doing, but we truly hope and believe that whatever they're doing, they're being effective at it because they're keeping this country safe. And that's what we do. All we're doing is trying to be silent and invisible and make sure we're effective at what we're doing to keep this community safe. And that is all I have, and I'm absolutely available for questions.
Does anyone have any questions? I see that Shirley and Nakari both have their hands raised. You can go first, Shirley.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sam, for that presentation. Really appreciate it. Wondering, I believe early on you mentioned, I think in the Peacekeeper section, 7 core focuses. Sorry, I can't exactly remember, but I just remember wanting to check in around the core focuses that you mentioned, if you could give a couple. And I'm just curious.
So, we designed the core focus. Literally what we tried to do, and I hope nobody's offended by this, but what we tried to do is acknowledge what every wholesome, healthy human being received in their life to be successful and happy in their future. And almost none of those are given to young people of color in urban America. That we were going to create what Warren Buffett's children would get. We was going to create what any governor's children were going to get. We were going to create what any middle class, well-to-do suburban family would give their children. And so we designed that specifically for those things. It's all evidence-based. Devon Bogan, who was the first director of the Office of Neighborhood Safety, he told us, I had never traveled. I didn't travel until I was 20 years old. And I remember getting on a plane going to Costa Rica in my adult years. And while I was on the plane, there was 14 11-year-olds from San Francisco that was coming back from Costa Rica. And it was a class trip. I've never, in the 44 years of my life, known of any international class trip sponsored for any young person in a public school in Richmond. And why is that? So we have to understand that there's a lot of people out there making great decisions, but our community doesn't have enough information to make those types of decisions. So we want to make sure that we're giving all these young people all of the information, all of the exposure, all of the access to be able to make better decisions. And so travel, internships, mentorship, life skills classes, giving you all the information that we have to help you become a healthy person. Now, it's up to you if you're going to use those things to better yourself. But what you're not going to be able to do afterwards is say, I didn't have the opportunity. Because right now, the majority of folks can honestly say, I never had the opportunity. I didn't have the opportunity to do anything but what I'm doing. And I know that's not, a lot of folks don't believe that. And so I understand that, but they're basing their perception off their own experiences. Most people who have experienced exactly what these young people are going to can absolutely agree with the fact, what else did we expect them to do? And so we don't get into the, you have to deserve anything, you have to earn something. We're saying this is fundamentally yours. You earn this just by breathing air in this community. But it's a challenge to get other people to believe that. I don't think it's fair for anybody to say that I've done something that makes me not human. You can treat me like an animal now because of the decision I made. Well, if I've been raised animalistic, my decisions will be animal-like. And so I feel like we've created something to where we're letting folks know you have a responsibility, you have an obligation to do better. But what's not your fault is the failed obligation and responsibility of those as you were growing up to show you how to do so.
Got it. Thanks so much, Sam. And I just have one hopefully quick question. I saw you mentioned that you provide resources to the folks that you engage with as well. And I think I saw the words like case management on a slide. So wondering, does that entail like linking up with folks to help get these, like the people interacting with you, like housing support, job support? Just wondering if there are those, like, if there's that resourcing being looked out for in ONS as well.
Yes, and no. So it's not going to be a quick answer. Sorry, Shirley. And so it's okay.
We have other people too.
Okay, so I'll make it as quick as possible. And so yes, we look for every opportunity to partner with whomever we can. The problem with that is, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of folks who feel like they have to do something to deserve that help. And we combat that, and we completely disagree with that. I will continue to help you as you spit in my face, as you reject me, as you deny me, as you threaten me. I'm going to say, I don't care. I love you enough to look past this and continue. And there's very few organizations who are willing to accept that. And so what we say is we're literally the Southwest of organizations. Your bags fly for free with us. We're not going to charge you because of it.
Okay, next, I believe it was Nakari.
Yes, yes. Brother Sam, I really appreciate the presentation. Got my nerves a little jittery a bit because it's beautiful and it's phenomenal. You know, and I just deem the work that you're doing is extremely essential to the youth that is really affected by the social norms, you know, that is that really jacket our community. But my question, if I can really put this in the best words possible, how can our youth that is not pretty much breaking down your mission statement along those words, how can you be a part of this platform or learn about the work that you're doing to further their interests and how they can serve their community? Because I just think about my siblings and my peers that I grew up amongst, you know, who also, you know, who complain about, oh, I don't know what I can do, you know, for my hood, but at the same time, you know, your presence, you know, and the service that you bring to your community is enough. So I just want to know, is there opportunity for young people to be a part of I would say like a shadowing platform, or just learn about the work that you're doing?
We believe that there are a tremendous amount of organizations and systems that if they followed a different type of theory of change would be much more effective. I would love, like there's 20,000 young people that would benefit from the work that we do. And if we were trying to accomplish getting youngsters to college or going to school or being healthy or sports or whatever the case may be, if folks implemented the theory of change in the work that we do in that way, I think it would be much more effective. Folks don't. And because we have, like I said, minimal resources, we're completely overworked. We're at or above capacity. But every staff member truly believes in their community. They truly love the young people that they're serving. And although they might not be able to help a young person graduate high school or go to college, and they might just be sitting on the corner, not doing much with their life, but the work we do might keep them alive because they don't get killed on their way to the basketball court. Because we've helped the young person that very well might shoot them just because they're from a community. So at least they get the opportunity to be able to make something of themselves in the future, and it ain't just over. I'm all for like doing whatever I can to create a much larger concept around our people need to be loved. Our community needs to be understood. Our community needs to be respected. Our community needs to be accepted. And we cannot accept the fact that there's something that our community needs to do to be able to be eligible for that love, support, and respect. It's something that's on us, and we need to do it because it's our obligation as adults, as overseers, as government, and any other words you want to see. It's our responsibility. And it's just been flipped backwards, and that's why we are where we are. So I would love to be able to have a conversation with you later on about maybe especially if I can get some support from the outside about, creating a group of young people who are saying enough is enough. Students demand action, which is a subvert of or offset of Moms Demand Action against gun violence. Like that's a bunch of young people saying enough is enough. How do we get involved? How do we end gun violence in our communities? They've contacted me. We're already starting a conversation about getting a program out here to train young people how to organize and, deal with politicians and just say, what is it that we can do to help? There's some things that can be done. We're not the go for all. We're not the answer to all. But I definitely think that we've influence and enough networks to where we can help that process and change the dynamics of this community. And so we can go offline to see how we can make that more effective. But yeah, we can do that.
Definitely, I'll be open to that.
Okay, I can connect you guys after. We have several more comments and questions. So Kristen.
All right, I'm gonna start making it real quick. I apologize.
Thank you, Sam Vaughn. That presentation was incredible. The more I learn about the department, ONS, the more it's really moving. I feel emotional also listening to you speak on it. I can feel your passion. And you actually pretty much just already answered my question. My question is, what are your hopes and dreams? What would you do if you had more resources, if you had the capacity? You're laying out all your accomplishments, but what would you really like to do if you had the capacity, if you had the funding?
I mean, that's the sky's the limit. Like I say, I'm not saying we're the golden ticket, but what I do believe is that the belief in the theory of change, I like that. in 3 words or less. We can do all. Sorry, Tamisha, that was 4 words. I do believe I would love to get into schools. I would love to be able to address this issue before it even arises. I truly believe if we create an environment to where we can deal with young people in the way they're dealing with their trauma at the age they're dealing with the trauma, they may not get to a place to where they're 16, 18, 20, and they're willing to take a life with no regard whatsoever, because they have no hope or care for themselves. How are they going to care or hope for somebody else's future? So it would be nice to be able to go downstream for sure. And I think there's a lot of missed opportunities with folks who have younger people, and not because they don't care. I'm not going to assume why, but I just think that the criteria of help, right, has gotten it's absurd. Like, we 9 months into a pandemic and we got 1 stimulus check, right? We've learned that the government doesn't give a damn about us. And we're trying to change that in the Office of Neighborhood Safety.
Okay, next we have Andres. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. That was a great presentation, and thank you for the great work you guys have been doing. You're truly an asset for the city of Richmond and an example of how Richmond has had cutting edge thinking about how to approach problems in new ways. And I hope that that continues. And so what I've known of the program and the staffing and everything, I think it's primarily males, but do you envision a day when there could be like a parallel program that focuses on women? Because, you know, women are primarily the victims of gun violence, but they have multiple levels of involvement in gun violence as well. And if that is the case, then there should be some planning around that, and that be worked into the city budget. And if we're looking at places where there could be transfers of money from the police department into these types of innovative thinking programs, I think that would be something we'd be interested in examining deeper. So my question is, would my presumption be true that you're focused primarily on males, and so addressing the females and their situation in a parallel organization may be a good thing? Is that something you guys would support?
Yes, your assumption is right. It's more males, because data shows us that males are the ones that are committing gun violence. Your assumption is correct. Women and young ladies are absolutely involved in perpetuating it. And yes, I would love for them to be able to get the same support that we give these young men.
Thank you.
Great. Next is Tamisha.
And I'm going to answer hers with 3 words or less.
Hi, Sam. I don't really have any questions because I know a lot.
Congratulations, Councilwoman.
Thank you. I just want to say I'm sure the Office of Neighborhood Safety has saved the city of Richmond millions, and also has saved families a lot of pain and suffering. I want to say no program or project is perfect. And that I just appreciate you and everybody who go out there and put your lives on the line every day to keep the community of Richmond safe, and for also being a model for other cities to look at and consider reducing gun violence. One act of gun violence is too many. So I just really appreciate you and the work that you do. And I wanted to say that.
Thank you very much.
And next we have BK. And after that, I'm going to open it up for public comment. We have 1 speaker.
Thank you. Thank you. Sam, I thought that was a really informative presentation. So thank you so much for that information. I also want to commend you for, I think you said the way you guys find the fellows is that you are interacting with the community. And I had, to find out who it is you should target. I just read an article about the sheriff in some place called Pesco, and they actually are finding students who have failing grades, and that is how they are targeting who is going to, who they need to go after in terms of who the criminals are for the future, which I find offensive and I find horrible. So I commend you for how you are actually pulling in the folks. The question I want to ask you is, when you go in to talk to folks, are you going in as a clothed officer? That's one question, straightforward question. Are you in uniform, gun, etc.? What is the age group of the fellows that you have?
So first, to make it clear, we're a government agency, but we are non-law enforcement.
Okay.
Nobody on staff is police. Nobody on staff has a weapon. And to be completely honest, everybody on staff would go to jail if we ever touched a gun, because the majority of us are formerly incarcerated and returning citizens. And so, no, we go in there looking like they do. Well, we do have some really, we have some really cool gear. We've tried to make it to where we're identifiable, but we still fit in when we're sitting in a group of 15, 20 young people on a corner or at a park. So we don't just stand out and make them feel uncomfortable. So yeah, we wear identifiable clothing. We're a government agency, but we're non-law enforcement. We have a relationship that's needed because that's what some would call a sister department. So we're both going out and trying to accomplish the same goal. We just go at it from completely different angles. And so
your age group, can you be specific?
And so the age group right now, the age group is anywhere between 17 and 22.
Okay. And finally, because you answered one question I didn't realize, do you share the information you have with, do the police know who your fellows are? Is that information shared?
No.
Okay, thank you.
And the reason being the same reason I spoke about earlier is it's hard enough we're dealing with young people that don't feel any benefit from dealing with us initially. All they see is risk, right? Like if I deal with you government too, like, what comes with that? So they don't feel a benefit. So we build a bond of trust. I've gotten arrested with fellows in Richmond as a city employee, a known city employee, right? So there's conflict in that relationship between us and RPD, but then there's also understanding. And what comes from the top, it doesn't always get to the rank and file. You have law enforcement officers who truly believe, and they're not bad people. They're not bad people. Like, they truly believe the only way to solve this problem is to get people who don't deserve to be on the street off the street. I just disagree with that. And that's not to say that they're bad people. And I hope they don't, because I just have fundamental issues and disagreements around humanity and structural injustices and racism. And I learned that the hard way. I had a friend who was a Nazi lowrider, hated black people just because they was black. And we were able to get into a situation where we didn't have anything to do but communicate with each other. It was just, that's all we had, or else be alone. And we understood the same way that I feel like the street code is the way you're supposed to live, and the way these young people believe street code, that's the way you live. You ain't got no other options. He was raised like black people are trying to take our farms. They're trying to rape our women. They're trying to destroy this country. That was taught to him, no fault of his own. And until you are able to experience different things, until you're able to open your mind, open your horizon, and see someone for more than the stereotypes that you've been taught about them your whole life, and we're going to stay in this cycle. And so, yeah, ONS and RPD kind of have some fundamental differences, but overall, we both completely agree that what we're trying to do is create a healthy and safe Richmond. And the only way we can do that is by not sharing our information, because our young people are not going to fool with us if they think we talking with police.
Do you have any final words, Sam?
No.
Before I open it
I
up.
done talked a lot. Go ahead.
Okay, because we're going to open it up to public comment. And there will be a 2-minute time period for the public to raise their hands at this time, and each speaker will have 1 minute. And I believe we have a speaker or several.
Yeah. First speaker is Marco Lemus. Marco, you have 1 minute. You may go ahead and start.
Hi, thank you for the presentation, Sam. I didn't have a long thing to say. I just wanted to say, if you have like all the data and research that you can send to people, just send it all to Joanne, and because I just want to take a look at all of it, because you guys are doing a lot of great work, and I think it could be the role model for something that can affect not just the United States, but the whole world, dealing with police brutality and over militarization. I had a question about your staffing. How many people that works in your office, and how do you choose who gets hired? How do you guys link up? Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Can you answer the questions at the end, Sam?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, our next speaker is Carol U. Johnson. Carol, you have 1 minute. Let me go ahead and start.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I just want to say that was an excellent presentation, very powerful. And for Sam, please keep up the great work, and hopefully you will get more than 1% of the city budget. And my question, it was already asked, but if you can make that presentation available to the public through Joanne, I guess. Somebody already asked that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we have Sarah Cantor. Sarah, you have 1 minute. You may go ahead and start.
Great, thank you. Sam, that was an amazing presentation. I just am so impressed and heartened by the work that you're doing. And I just want to name for the task force that the success that ONS has, I think, is a lot due to the model of what Sam mentioned, that a lot of folks are previously incarcerated, that you have people who are working in the program who are experts in their community, not necessarily experts in an academic subject area. And so as we're considering different forms of alternatives to make sure that we're not precluding the people who are most impacted from being a huge part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are all the speakers.
So Sam, if you want to answer the question about how do you or how many staff you have?
Yeah, so staffing, we have 4 full-time outreach workers. As of last budget cycle, they gave us 2 more. Hopefully it was a process, so we lost 6 months of that. And so we should be hiring those 2 outreach workers within the next month. So we will have 6 outreach workers on the team full-time, city employees doing this work, and we're grateful for that increase. How do we choose them? And Sarah said this, and thank you for that, Sarah. Like, we choose them because they are experts in their own travels through self-redemption. Almost all of our staff has been to prison. All of our staff is from Richmond. All of our staff was involved in this type of lifestyle at one point in time. And so we absolutely can relate on how one can get to this place because we once were there. And then we can also understand the the hopelessness that these young people in this community feel to be able to create this kind of environment. And for whatever reason, and all of our stories are a little different, but one thing that's in common is we all were able to come to a place to where we challenged ourselves. We had to have self-reflection, and we had to say, you know what, this isn't a life that I would choose for myself. And we were in a place to where, okay, what would my life look like? What kind of person would I be if I got to choose with all the knowledge that I have right now? Or what do I need to learn to be able to even come up with that individual? And so we cannot have folks who don't have a map trying to drive these young people to a destination. And so that's kind of how we choose. They can learn a lot. We can teach them how to deal with some data. We can teach them how to deal with technology. We can teach them, you know, some conflict mediation skills. But what we can't teach them is a passion for the community. We cannot teach them an understanding that no one gets to the place to where they need to be without some support and help and guidance. And we can't teach them how to be willing to make themselves vulnerable, you know, to be that guide.
Okay, so thank you again, Sam, for coming. And I'm going to officially end this portion of our agenda because we have one other kind of big item, or maybe small. It may be really simple and easy, because from our special meeting, there were 4 areas.
Thank you,
priority. Oh, thank you, Sam. Sorry. 4 areas of priority areas of work that the subgroups could be formed into. Or Lupe, can you put the slide on the screen, please? The next slide. Yeah, these are the 4 areas. So we need about 5 people in each area. So we're going to start with smart budget and resource allocation. So for those people who would like to be a part of this sub-working group, can you raise your hand, please?
Joanne.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I make a request?
I will try my best to grant it.
Okay, no, I just wanted to ask, before people actually select themselves into groups, can you kind of go over what each group is and what the area of focus is, and then ask people to select?
Okay. Sure.
Thank you.
I just, I was hoping that because this information was sent out and we were given the opportunity to kind of digest the information a little bit before the meeting, but I will definitely find it.
I don't want to assume that, that's all.
I know, I'm just wishful. Oh, wrong folder. Okay. So and this is also, we'll have to remember that these kind of, for the titles of these groups, I'm not sure if, okay, anyway, this subgroup, the first one, the smart budget and resource allocation, based on the information that was provided to you all, is this subgroup would focus on budgetary and other resource allocation issues, including support for programs like ceasefire, and I inserted the terminology ONS, and then creating synergy between law enforcement and human services and resources. And the accountability as safety group is a group that would focus on RPD staffing, training, basic evidence-based processes for departmental accountability, including complaints and misconduct. The health and safety group would have areas of focus such as mental and behavioral health, substance abuse, homelessness, with an emphasis on evidence-based public health oriented approaches that can be alternatives to traditional law enforcement. And finally, the community-based solutions group. This group would focus on alternatives to policing for common problems in areas where we need to meet people's needs, e.g. mutual aid, housing, counseling and assistance, immigration issues, interpersonal disputes, family reconciliation, and other issues that people often turn to police to address that could be better resolved using community solutions.
I have a question before we move on. My question is, how many task force members are here right now? Because
we don't have everyone here, I mean, obviously, and there are, I believe, 5 of us, so I think there's 16 of you.
16 here? Okay.
I believe, yeah, let me see. Math is not my friend. So yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there's just 5 of us. Oh no, and 6. So there's
15.
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Okay.
I forgot Sam was not a. So that, I mean, so we're missing 6 people and there's 4 groups. We can hopefully.
Is it a way to, it's Tamisha, is there a way to send out a poll or something?
We can do that too. If that's, because we are coming to the end of our meeting.
Yes.
So.
It's about to be 7:30. I'm hungry. Is there a way to send out a poll with the description? So it's like, this is a subgroup, this is what it is. Choose your top 2 or top 3, and then y'all aggregate it and put people in groups.
Okay, here's the thing. I've sent out a questionnaire before. I sent out this document with these descriptions, and I've sent out some other things where we've had, I don't want to say, I mean, the response wasn't as much as we had hoped for. So I'm
willing to make phone calls. I'm willing to call. I'm willing to blow people up if that's what it takes.
Okay, because the only thing is because we did kind of go through a whole meeting or half of a meeting to discuss what the subgroups were going to be. And then we synthesized the information, and then at the last meeting, the group decided to change all of the subgroups. But we really need to get you guys kind of started doing some of the work, and it's hard for us to provide information and do the work at the same time in these meetings. So we want to get this started pretty quickly.
Can I make a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
So I'd like to move that we adopt the 4 subgroups as described and begin the process of populating them tonight, with the understanding that the people who are not here tonight will have the opportunity between now and the next meeting or at the meeting to choose a subgroup that they want to be assigned to.
So it sounds like the options are, I can send out a poll and a questionnaire and you can add yourself to a group that way, or we can just do it now and the people who aren't here, I can add them later. Who would prefer, like?
Let's do it now.
Yeah, I second that motion.
Yeah.
Is there anyone who objects to setting the groups now? or to selecting the groups now. Okay. So back to the first group, smart budget and resource allocation.
Do you want us to raise hands or
Yes,
speak
please.
Orally?
Well, just raise your hand that way. So if you have a question or have a comment, don't raise your hand right now. Just raise your hand if you want to be a part of that group. Okay, wait. So Andres, Tanya, Deborah, and David. Okay, what about accountability and safety? Deborah, you want to be on this one as well?
I'm sorry, I only volunteered for one.
Your hand's still raised. We're on number 2.
I didn't hear. I'm sorry, I didn't even hear that. My phone was cutting off. I apologize. Let me lower my hand.
I'm just glad I asked. I want to make sure.
No, thank you.
Okay, so Randy and anyone else? Okay.
All by myself.
Oh, Tamisha's got you. She's going to help you with that. Oh, and Laura. Okay.
I got peoples.
Okay, health and safety. Kristen, Shirley McCarthy. Okay. And finally, the community-based solutions. We also have BK who wants to be on this one. She had to leave right at 7:30. So, Shirley, you want to be on this one as well?
Sorry, forgot to lower my hand.
Okay, great. Okay. Tamisha, you want to be on this one too? We're on community-based solutions.
Yep.
Okay, so BK, Armand. As I call your name, you can lower your hand. Then Luis, and then Tamisha. Okay, is there any, oh, yes, Randy? Did you want to vote for that too? Okay.
I want to do double the work.
Okay. So is there anyone present who has not assigned themselves to a group? Can you speak up if you have not assigned yourself to a group? Okay.
What about Don?
I think he has to be silent because he's on another meeting. Oh. So what I will do is for all of the members, the task force members who are not here, and for those who are unable to speak up at this time, I will send a questionnaire with the information asking them to please select a group. And then that way we make sure everyone has their assignments. And then we will, then we can go from there and expect to get a little bit more administrative and logistical support with that from staff as we get these selected. And that will be within the next week. Tamisha, did you have a question?
Just a comment, because I'm blackity black. If you don't join a subgroup, I don't want to hear nothing about why we didn't do something or none of that. I feel like everybody should carry the load. This is very important. And I'm willing to put 100% in, and I hope everybody else is too.
Thank you. Andres?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that in the future, you may want to explore getting the polling feature on Zoom, and it makes choosing a little cleaner rather than confusing the raise hand thing.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Deborah, you got a question?
Yes. My question is, I guess it's a request. I just wanted to make sure that we establish some sort of basic framework about how the working groups would operate. So I think that one of the things that's important about people choosing to volunteer on a subgroup is that for the purposes of this task force, that subgroup would be the decision-making group on recommendations to the larger group, and that other task force members can attend those subgroup meetings, but only the people who've made themselves part of the working group will be the ones who actually vote on the recommendations.
Okay, we will have to revisit some of that, what you've talked about, because at this point, we just need to get the subgroups. We need to get them kind of up and running, and then we'll have to have further discussion around how each of these will be working. But any recommendations has to come from this entire group. So
can I ask for that to be on the agenda for our next meeting?
Yeah, no, it will definitely be on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Because I think, yes, it'll be on the next agenda.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Joanne.
No, go ahead.
No, my only other question is what's the status of the subgroup that was formed to vet the facilitators for the community meeting? Because I believe we're supposed to have the first community listening session in January, but I haven't heard any more about the proposals that were submitted or any chances to interview and make recommendations on the facilitators in advance of that meeting.
There's been some internal holdup with within the city around with the proposals. So we are actually, we will be bringing that information. We hadn't had enough space on the agendas for us to kind of get fully into that, but we definitely will be having a discussion about that.
I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to be disruptive. I just wanted to make sure that wasn't gonna impact the date for the first community listening session.
No, we are chugging along. We're making sure
thank you.
It's all happening. Okay, Andres, real quick, we have we need to leave a little bit of space for public comment, and then so that we can adjourn the meeting.
Yeah, no, just to make the point that, this task force is a Brown Act committee that has certain specific requirements and parameters. Any subgroups would be also under the Brown Act, and perhaps that's something that should be clarified for all the task force members, is to how the Brown Act applies to any of the subcommittees of the larger committee.
Yeah,
thank you, Andres.
We did discuss that at the special meeting last week, and so we will reiterate that once we begin all of the logistic and administrative support to the subgroups. But we're going to open this item up to public comment now, and there will be a 2-minute time period for the public to raise their hand if they would like to speak. And each speaker will have 1 minute. I believe we have a person with their hand raised.
So we have one speaker. If you can please announce yourself. You have 1 minute. You may go ahead and start. For the phone number 510-672-6261. You can go ahead and start.
Hello?
Hi.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I'm so sorry. I'm kind of trying to figure out this unmuting thing. So my name is Edith. I'm a organizer with ACE in Richmond. And I just wanted to comment that this is a really good start so far. I'm really happy that we've gotten here. And I'm not sure when everyone was selecting the subgroups, is this something that is open also to the public, or is this only just like what's being formed for the task force? That's just more of a clarification question I have.
Thank you.
All of our meetings are public meetings.
And that was our only speaker.
So with that, let's see. To recap for some action items, I will be sending out further information and requests for the remaining task members to select a subgroup. And I will make sure to get out information about the facilitator, and I will send out the corrected calendar. And other than that, am I missing anything? Doesn't sound like I am. So we will go ahead and adjourn our meeting. Thank you, everyone, for coming, for being a part of this. I really appreciate you all.
Thank you for your facilitation,
Happy holidays.
Joanne.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great God, Joanne. See you later.
Bye.
Go get some rest, sister.
I'm getting ready to go eat.
Oh, even better. Me too. Okay. Bye.
Bye.